Behind the towering walls and grand palaces of Chang'an lies a dark secret of a mighty dynasty. A story of honesty that comes at a heavy price, of justice drowned in a sea of corruption, and of one man brave enough to uncover the truth, even if it costs him 1,000 wounds. This is the beginning of a dark journey into one of the most terrifying punishments in human history: death by 1,000 cuts. When the voice of justice begins to whisper in the shadows of power, will truth survive? Or will it be slowly destroyed, cut by cut, until nothing remains? Welcome to Episode 1, Shadows over Chang'an. A tale from ancient China, that will shake your conscience and test your courage. Don't forget to subscribe, because this story is just beginning. Slow but deadly, the ancient Chinese punishment of death by 1,000 cuts. Episode 1, Shadows in Chang'an. The autumn wind blew gently through the city of Chang'an, carrying yellow leaves that drifted down along the stone-paved streets. This ancient city, once the heart of the glorious Tang dynasty, now stood grand yet somber under the rule of the Qing dynasty. Towering city walls enclosed the bustling markets, the humble homes of the poor, and the majestic palaces where nobles resided. Behind the beauty of the architecture and the clamor of the merchants, there lingered a quiet fear, an unease invisible to the untrained eye. In the eastern corner of the city, in a modest wooden house, lived a man named Li Wei. He was thin, clean-faced, and his gaze was sharp yet calm. He worked as a scribe in the imperial court, a low-ranking but crucial position, as every legal decision had to pass through his hands before reaching the desks of judges and high officials. Each morning, Li Wei would don his faded grey robe, organize his bamboo scrolls and black ink, then walk through narrow alleys toward the towering court building in the city center. Never once did he complain or shirk his duties. He believed that justice, no matter how small his role in the vast and complex system, must always be upheld. At home, his wife Mei Lin, a gentle woman who always wore a deep red shawl over her shoulders, would wait for his return with a warm cup of tea and the latest neighborhood gossip. They had no children, but their love was enough to fill the tiny house with warmth on the cold Chang'an nights. But beneath the surface of Li Wei's tranquil life, whispers began to spread among the scribes and palace guards. They spoke in hushed voices about Gao Feng, a rising general known for his cruelty and cunning. Rumor had it that Gao Feng controlled the tax routes in several provinces, embezzled imperial gold, and eliminated anyone who knew too much. Li Wei heard all of it, but chose to remain silent. He knew all too well the fate of those who spoke too freely in a land ruled by fear. Until, one unusual evening, everything changed. That day, the sky appeared darker, even though the sun had not fully set. While organizing documents in the court's archives, Li Wei stumbled upon an official tax payment order from the Jiangxi region. Its listed amount didn't match the figures in the official audit records. At first, he thought it was merely a clerical error. But his curiosity drove him to dig deeper into related files. The more he investigated, the more discrepancies he uncovered. And the deeper he delved, the clearer one name kept surfacing: Gao Feng. That night, Li Wei sat silently on the porch of his home. Mei Lin looked at him, sensing that something was wrong. "Is something troubling you, Wei?" Mei Lin asked softly, as she served him a cup of hot tea. Li Wei slowly nodded. "I found something. Something that could shake the very foundation of the court." Mei Lin looked at him with worry. "If it's dangerous, let it go, Wei. This world is too cruel for honest men." But Li Wei stared into the distance, toward the darkening sky over Chang'an, and murmured, "If everyone chooses silence, who will speak for the oppressed?" And from that night on, the seeds of fate were sown. Li Wei didn't yet know that the documents now hidden in his drawer would become the spark of a terrifying storm. That the path he had chosen would not lead to justice, but to 1,000 wounds that would carve his name in history, written in blood. Episode 2, The Letter That Should Never Have Been Read. The morning wind carried a chill as Li Wei walked briskly toward the courthouse. His head was filled with restless thoughts. That letter, the suspicious document, kept flashing through his mind. He had copied its contents the night before, hiding it behind the wall of his house, far from anyone's reach. But one question haunted him: who had slipped that letter into the archive? The records room was quiet that morning. No sounds except the creak of wooden doors and the scratch of brush pens against paper. Li Wei sat calmly at his desk, but his eyes were alert. He watched carefully as people entered and exited. Several senior scribes were busy with the annual tax documents. One of them was Mr. Shen, an old man who had worked there for over 20 years and was known for his loyalty to whichever authority held power at the time. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway. 2 armed guards entered with stern expressions. They announced that all staff must surrender sensitive documents immediately, as an inspection would be conducted by a personal envoy of General Gao Feng. Li Wei froze. A surprise inspection? That was unheard of. Extremely unusual. Anyone found in possession of unauthorized documents will be considered a traitor to the state, declared one of the guards with a piercing gaze. Li Wei lowered his head, hiding the anxiety creeping through his body. He knew that the letter he had found could mean a death sentence if discovered. But he also knew that if he handed it over, it would vanish, and the truth along with it. As evening approached, Li Wei decided to visit someone he trusted, Jiang Min, an old friend who now worked as a librarian at the Temple of Heaven. Jiang Min was not a government official, but he was known as a freethinker and a wise man. Beneath the plum tree, its leaves now turning yellow, they spoke quietly. "I found something, Min. An official letter that seems suspicious. I suspect it's linked to large-scale embezzlement," said Li Wei as he handed over a copy of the letter. Jiang Min read it slowly, his brows furrowing. "This is dangerous, Wei. Gao Feng's name is written here. This could make you a target of the palace. But if this is real, we're talking about massive corruption within the empire." Li Wei nodded slowly. "I can't turn a blind eye. But I don't know where to start. I'm not a high-ranking official. My voice won't be heard." Jiang Min looked at him in silence, then said, "If you truly want to reveal the truth, you must find someone within the palace who still has a conscience. A man not yet bought by power." Li Wei nodded, though doubt filled his heart. In a system so corrupt, could someone still be clean? That night, Li Wei returned home with a mind full of strategies. He knew that one wrong move, one word heard by the wrong ear, would be the end of everything. But as he arrived at his house, he saw the door ajar. "Mail in?" he called softly. No answer. He stepped inside cautiously. The tea was still steaming on the table. The oil lamp was still burning. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. Then he saw a piece of paper on the dining table. The handwriting was rushed and rough. "Stop digging or your wife becomes the prize. We know what you found." His hands trembled. His breath caught in his throat. This was no longer about truth. This was no longer about the letter. This was about life and death. Slow but deadly, the punishment of death by 1,000 cuts from ancient China. Episode 3-4, Eyes Behind the Curtain and in the Shadows of Power. Winds of Threat. That night, the wind pierced sharper than usual. Li Wei sat in his cramped office, his eyes fixed on a scroll sealed with a blood-red stamp. He shouldn't have read that letter, let alone kept it. But it was too late. Someone, or something, knew. Fear didn't show on his face, but his heart pounded wildly. He opened a secret panel in the wooden floor, revealing a hidden copy of the letter. It was still there. But deep down, he felt that his time was running out. A traitor within the palace. The next day, Li Wei donned his official robes and walked through the long imperial corridor toward the reporting hall. He carried an ordinary document, rice logistics and winter supply records. But his eyes sharply observed his surroundings. He saw Master Shen, the senior scribe, speaking with a man in black robes he didn't recognize. On the stranger's belt was a symbol of a broken-winged black bird. That mark was infamous in palace whispers, the symbol of General Gao Feng's secret force, a power so hidden it was feared even by high-ranking officials. When he returned to the archive room, Li Wei's heart nearly stopped. His desk was a mess. A small drawer where he kept auxiliary notes had been pried open. But the most shocking thing was a scrap of dark fabric, the corner of a robe, caught on the edge of the drawer. Without a doubt, someone had been searching. And they were getting too close. A hidden meeting at the Temple of Heaven. Beneath a yellow plum tree, whose leaves were beginning to fall, Li Wei met again with Jiang Min, his old friend and senior librarian. This time, Jiang Min wasn't alone. He introduced a young woman named Wu Fei, a former palace maid who was now part of a civilian anti-corruption underground group. Wu Fei looked Li Wei in the eyes. "We know about the letter. We know about the fire at your house. You think that was an accident?" Li Wei clenched his jaw. "They want me silent." Wu Fei nodded. "And they'll silence anyone who knows. But you, Li Wei, you're the last link. If you fall, the truth dies with you." Jiang Min interjected, "We must move first. Deliver the letter directly to the emperor." Li Wei looked at them deeply. There was fear, but also a flicker of courage beginning to burn. He knew, this war could no longer be avoided. Fire and shadows. That night, as he returned home, he smelled smoke from afar. His house, once peaceful and modest, was on fire. Neighbors tried to put it out, but the blaze was too intense. As he ran into the crowd, he saw a mysterious figure standing motionless in the shadows, a man in black robes bearing the broken bird symbol. Their eyes met. Sharp. Warning. Then the figure disappeared into the darkness. Among the ashes and flames, Li Wei found that the small chest containing his backup letter was missing. But not all hope was lost. He still had one final copy, hidden. In a place no one would ever suspect. A shadow council. In Jiang Min's secret residence, their small group gathered. It included former palace servants, small traders, and a betrayed guard. They had one wild plan, to infiltrate the imperial offering ceremony, where the emperor would be present, and slip the letter into a sacred offering box only the emperor himself could open. "If it works, the emperor will read the truth with his own eyes," said Wu Fei. Li Wei lowered his head. "And if it fails? We die slowly, like 1,000 cuts that never heal." A bold step toward truth. On the day of the offering, the city was under heavy watch. Li Wei, disguised as an incense-bearer, carried the offering box with utmost care. Inside it, he had hidden the letter, disguised as a prayer text for a bountiful harvest. He nearly passed inspection until a guard, one of General Gao's men, looked at him suspiciously. "New here?" the guard asked. Li Wei bowed. "Called in to replace a sick one, Your Honor." The guard leaned closer and began lifting the lid of the box. But at that moment, the palace bell rang, signaling the emperor's entrance. Inspection halted. All offerings had to be brought to the altar immediately. Li Wei held his breath. The emperor's gaze. From behind white silk curtains, the emperor slowly walked toward the altar. His eyes were tired, his body aged, but his aura remained formidable. In front of him lay the offering boxes, including the one Li Wei carried. Li Wei stood far off to the side of the hall, bowing low, not daring to look up. The emperor unrolled scroll after scroll. Then he stopped. The ministers looked at one another. The emperor read the letter carefully, then turned slowly. His gaze had changed. Cold. Sharp. Angry. "Who brought this?" The emperor's voice thundered through the silent hall. Li Wei bowed deeper. He knew, in that moment, his life would never be the same again. End of episode 3-4. In the darkness, a small light had been lit. But like a candle in the storm, would that light survive? To be continued in episode 5-6, The Shadow and the Emperor. Slow but deadly, the death by 1,000 cuts punishment from ancient China. Episode 5-6, The Shadow and the Emperor. The Emperor's eyes. Silence enveloped the whole of heaven as the Emperor lowered the scroll from his hands. His old eyes no longer looked weary. There was fire in them, anger, suspicion, and shock masked beneath a composed, regal face. The ministers stood frozen, realizing that the scroll was not a sacrificial offering, but a secret accusation against General Gao Feng, one of the empire's pillars of power. Who placed this here? The emperor's voice echoed, calm, but deadly. Li Wei stood at the far end of the hall. He knew this moment would come. With slow but steady steps, he walked forward, then knelt on the cold marble floor. I am Li Wei, a low-ranking court scribe from the city of Chang'an. The hall erupted into a murmur. Some officials recognized the name. Others immediately looked suspicious. Among the crowd, Gao Feng's spies in disguise slipped out quietly to report back to their master. The emperor stared at Li Wei for a long time. Do you understand that what you've done could be considered treason? Li Wei bowed deeply. I do, your majesty. But I fear lies. More than I fear death. Gao Feng's fortress. In a grand fortress outside the palace, General Gao Feng was dining when his guard whispered into his ear. His cold expression darkened. Li Wei handed the scroll directly to the emperor? Yes, General. And His Majesty read it himself. Gao Feng looked out the window. Rain had begun to fall. Thunder rumbled in the distance. If the palace can no longer be trusted to silence him, then we must make him silent before morning. He ordered a covert ambush, not through official military means, but through shadow hands, silent assassins, unnamed executioners. Imprisonment and betrayal. Li Wei was immediately detained by palace guards, not as punishment, but for his own protection. He was taken to a chamber within the White Fortress, where honorable detainees were kept. Mei Lin, who had previously disappeared, was also secured by loyal palace guards. They were ordered not to leave until the emperor's decision was announced. But danger came not only from outside. Master Shen, the senior scribe and secret agent of Gao Feng, disguised himself as a guard and infiltrated Li Wei's chamber. But before he could carry out his plan, Wu Fei appeared from a hidden passageway, dagger in hand. I knew you'd come, Shen, Wu Fei said coldly. Traitors always slither in during the darkest night. A brief fight broke out, ending with Shen's death at Wu Fei's hands. His blood stained the pristine white floor of the imperial prison, a cruel irony that justice must begin with death. The emperor's move. In his palace, the emperor summoned his most trusted advisors. They read Li Wei's letters, comparing them with tax reports and hidden complaints from the people. If this is all true, the emperor said, then we are not merely speaking of corruption. We are speaking of betrayal against the nation. But one advisor, Minister Lu, an old figure who had served for decades, nodded gravely. Your Majesty, Gao Feng is too powerful. He has his own private army, spies in every corner of the palace. If we attack him directly, civil war may erupt. The emperor gazed at the scroll in his hand. His eyes were sharp. Then we won't strike him directly. We will let him think he has already won. And then, when he is most confident, we will pull the sword from behind his back. The shadow moves. That night, the assassins sent by Gao Feng slipped silently into the White Fortress. Dressed in black, they made no sound, left no trace. But they did not know the emperor had already prepared everything. As they entered the detention corridor, poisoned arrows rained from hidden ceilings. The assassins fell one by one. Behind a mirrored wall, the emperor watched it all through a secret surveillance room. I've broken your toys, Gao Feng, he murmured quietly. The final decree. The next day, all high-ranking officials were summoned to the Hall of Judgment. The emperor, with a calm voice, announced his decision. Greater than General Gao Feng, for the crimes of corruption, treason, secret assassinations, and misuse of private forces for personal gain, is sentenced to Lingchi, death by 1,000 cuts. The hall erupted in shock. No one had imagined that such an ancient punishment would be imposed on one of the most powerful officials. Closing of episodes 5 to 6. Li Wei stood on a small balcony of the White Fortress. From there, he watched the sun slowly rise. Mei Lin approached and held his hand. In the distance, the drums of war had transformed into the drums of justice. He had risked his life. He had lost his home, his friends, and nearly everything. But he had won. For the people. For the truth. Yet he knew, his journey was far from over. Because true justice is a wound that keeps bleeding, and must never be forgotten. Episode 7, The Price of Betrayal. The morning sky over the capital of China was shrouded in grey clouds. A heavy fog hung low, as if signaling a day of mourning, even though no official ceremony had been declared. In the dungeon beneath the palace, Li Wei sat silently on the cold stone floor, his body gaunt and scarred from the torture he had endured during interrogation. But beyond the physical wounds, what hurt more was the betrayal. Not just from the palace he had once served with unwavering loyalty, but from a reality that no longer had room for justice or conscience. Outside his cell, footsteps echoed. The heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing the emperor himself, unaccompanied by guards. "Li Wei," the emperor said softly. "You are a clever man. But intelligence without loyalty is a double-edged sword." Li Wei stared at him sharply, saying nothing. The silence spoke louder than any words. The emperor stepped closer and laid a scroll before Li Wei. "Your confession will be copied. This isn't about what's true, but about what the people need to believe." Li Wei knew, no matter what he said, history had already been rewritten. He was no longer the whistleblower who exposed corruption, but a traitor to the state, paraded as an example. That night, Mei Lin stood in the distance, watching from the shadows. Hope had dimmed, but she still held on to something more dangerous than all, the truth. Episode 8, Death by 1,000 Cuts. The day of execution arrived. In the central square, hundreds of citizens gathered. Upon the wooden platform, Li Wei was bound in white cloth, his body frail, but his face held high. The executioner, dressed in black, slowly sharpened his blade in full view of the crowd. Death by 1,000 cuts, or Lingchi, was not just an execution. It was the slow destruction of dignity. One tiny wound after another, so the pain would stretch endlessly, and the shame would be passed down. The first cut was slow, starting from a non-vital part of the body. The crowd roared. Some covered their faces, children wept. But the emperor, seated afar on a temporary throne, smiled calmly. Mei Lin slipped through the crowd, tears falling silently. In her hand was a scroll, a copy of Li Wei's original confession that had not yet been destroyed. She knew she could not save Li Wei's life. But she could save his name. In a quiet place far from the execution ground, she handed the scroll to an old, honest historian. "Please," she whispered, "rewrite this story." As the sun set and Li Wei's body became only a name, the truth began to find its way. Years later, Li Wei's name resurfaced in alternative historical records. No longer as a traitor, but as a hero, who died for voicing the truth in a system that refused to hear it. Among the blood-stained scrolls of ancient China, Lingchi became more than just a symbol of physical cruelty, it became the embodiment of a state's desperation against the voice of conscience. And as for Mei Lin, she lived in exile, but not in vain. For in every cut Li Wei endured, a seed of change was planted, one that would someday grow, however slow and painful.